years ago, you traveled to Singapore to study how they select and train teachers and leaders. Tell us what's different about Singapore versus the United States.
Well, I went to Singapore because Singapore, Finland, and Shanghai are the three entities that have routinely been the highest performing school systems in the world. And I've read a lot about Finland, and I didn't think I wanted to go to Shanghai, but I thought it would be interesting to study Singapore. Singapore is a city-state, and it's all in one place, and it's very easy to manage in one sense. But Singapore children are among the highest performing children in the world. So the question is why? And I went to Singapore not to go into the classroom and study teaching, but to study the system. How does Singapore manage their education system? Well, it's quite different. In this country, if you want to be a teacher, you have to first of all be a high school graduate and have money for tuition. If you have those two things, I guarantee you can become a teacher. And if you want to become a principal in this country, you need, first of all, to have been a teacher for 2 to 3 years and have money for tuition. If you have those two ingredients, I guarantee you can become a principal. And so as a consequence, we end up with excellence by accident, not by design, and particularly in leadership. And in fact, in this country, some of our very worst teachers are the very first to apply to become administrators, because if you can't make it in the classroom, become an administrator. And so we end up with a whole litany of mediocre to incompetent, quite frankly, principals. In fact, when I was on the school board, we ended up replacing 70 of 96 principals during my tenure. And the reason we did that is because we were looking for quite different kinds of people to run our schools. But having said that, in Singapore, if you want to be a teacher, you first of all have to be a college grad. That's different than us. In our country, you have to be a high school grad. In Singapore, you have to be a college grad. Not only do you have to be a college grad, but you have to have graduated in the top 30 of your class, and you have to have majored in the subject you want to teach. What a concept. Who would have thought of that? But not only that, but if you want to be an elementary teacher, you have to have majored in either math or English. Now, if you meet those qualifications, top 30 of your class, majored in the subject you want to teach, then you're called for an interview. And in that interview, there are 4 adults. There's a sitting teacher, a sitting principal, a member of the Ministry of Education, who is themselves an educator, and then a member of the Human Resources Department of the ministry. Now, those 4 people will put you through a very detailed and extensive interview, including role play. And they will look at you not only in terms of your content competency, but also your personality, your character, your passion, your desire to relate to children, and your ability to relate to children. And so you have to go through this interview. 80% of the people who go through the interview do not make it. So now you're down to 20%. If you make it through the interview, then you are hired by the Ministry of Education to become a teacher. So in Singapore, you are paid to become a teacher. You don't pay any tuition. And if you get through the interview, you are assigned for 1 year, up to 1 year, in a school. It can be an elementary, middle, or high school, depending on what it is you want to teach. But you are assigned to a school under a mentor teacher for a year. During that year, you are assessed, and you, of course, taught and how to teach and all these sort of things, but you're also assessed. And 40% of the people who get into that segment do not make it. So at the end of your teaching regimen, your 1 year practicum, then if you make it, you then go back to college for very specific training in classroom management, curriculum instruction, and all other kinds of things. And when you graduate, you go back to the same school you did your teaching in. And the reason for that is because you already know the school, the faculty already know you, and you already have some acquaintance with the students. And so that's how they do it. And if you want to become a principal, you don't decide on your own to become a principal. They handpick the candidates to become principals from their teaching corps, and then they go through a leadership program at the universities. So that's how they do it. And as a consequence, in Singapore, there are no bad teachers. And they also can get rid of them. If there is a bad teacher, they can get rid of them. So they don't have tenure. And teachers are paid very well. It's a high status profession. It's a highly desirable profession, but it's as hard to get into teaching as it is to get into medical school in Singapore.